The massive doors of the Galactic Hegemony flagship, indomitable crest, slid open with a hiss. Ambassador Gary Mitchell straightened his blue uniform and took a deep breath. This was humanity's first official meeting with the Hegemony Council, and everything had to go perfectly. "Ready, sir?" asked his aide, Samantha Wells. "As ready as I'll ever be," Gary replied, stepping forward into the grand chamber. The room was enormous. Everything was built for beings 3 times human size. The ceiling soared nearly 30 feet high, and the council table alone stood as tall as Gary himself. 6 alien representatives sat around it, each one towering at heights between 12 and 15 feet. Their forms varied, some reptilian, others insectoid or vaguely mammalian, but all shared one thing in common: they were huge. Gary approached the center of the room where a small platform had been set up. It reminded him uncomfortably of a child's booster seat at a dining table. Still, he stepped onto it with dignity, rising to a height where the council members could see him without looking down too severely. "Welcome, Earth representative," rumbled the Corvin delegate, a massive reptilian being with dark green scales. "We are surprised by your appearance." "Thank you for hosting us aboard the indomitable crest," Gary replied, keeping his voice steady and diplomatic. "The United Earth government is honored by this opportunity for first contact." A low murmur passed through the council members. One of them, a blue-skinned being with 4 arms, leaned toward another and whispered loudly, "I thought they would send an adult, not a juvenile." Gary felt his cheeks warm, but maintained his composure. "I assure you, I am 43 years old and fully authorized to represent Earth in these negotiations." The lead counselor, an enormous being named Drox with gray skin and 6 eyes, made a sound that might have been a chuckle. "Fascinating. Your species is indeed as small as our scouts reported. We had hoped the images were somehow distorted." "Size varies greatly among species," Gary noted diplomatically, "as does strength, intelligence, and capability." "Indeed," Drox said, though his tone suggested he didn't truly believe it. "Tell us about your world, tiny one." "Our initial scans show primitive military technology and limited space travel capabilities." Gary fought back a frown. Earth had unified after decades of climate restoration. Their technology, while not as flashy as the Hegemony's, was elegant and efficient. Their ships were small but fast, their weapons precise rather than overwhelming. "Earth has much to offer the Hegemony," Gary explained. "Our scientific advancements, cultural diversity, and yes, our military capabilities could be valuable to mutual defense and exploration." The council members exchanged glances. One of them, a female with flowing tendrils for hair, actually giggled. "You misunderstand, Ambassador," Drox said. "We aren't offering membership in the Hegemony. Your species clearly requires protection. We offer classification as a protected minor species. You would receive our guidance and defense in exchange for resource rights and observational access to your world." Gary blinked. "Protected minor species? I don't understand." "It's quite simple," the Corvin delegate explained slowly, as if to a child. "Your kind is small and physically weak. The galaxy is dangerous. We will protect you, as we protect all adorable primitive species." The Earth delegation behind Gary shifted uncomfortably. Captain Linda Holt, their military attaché, clenched her fists so tightly her knuckles turned white. "While we appreciate your concern," Gary said carefully, "Earth is capable of defending itself. We seek partnership, not protection." This caused outright laughter from several council members. The blue 4-armed one slapped the table, making a booming sound that echoed through the chamber. "How would you even hold our weapons?" another counselor asked between chuckles. "They would crush your tiny limbs." Gary stood as tall as his 5'10" frame would allow. "We have our own weapons, designed for our physiology. I respectfully request the council reconsider its position." "Your enthusiasm is charming," Drox said condescendingly. We will give you time to consider our generous offer. This meeting is concluded. As the Earth delegation filed out, Linda moved beside Gary. They have no idea, do they? She whispered. Gary shook his head. No. And I hope they never have to find out what humans are truly capable of when underestimated. The door is closed behind them with a final, echoing thud. 3 years had passed since the first meeting with the Galactic Hegemony. Earth had reluctantly accepted protected status, but only on paper. Behind the scenes, they had been preparing. Admiral Nancy Caldwell stood before the large screen in Earth's Defense Command Center. The room buzzed with activity as officers moved between stations. On the screen, blinking red dots showed enemy ships moving toward hegemony border worlds. The Vashar Dominion is making their move, Nancy said, pointing to the map. Our deep space sensors picked up their fleet movements 2 days ago. The United Earth Council members looked worried. President Howard Ellis rubbed his forehead. Have you alerted the hegemony? He asked. Yes, Nancy replied. They dismissed our warning. Said our primitive sensors must be malfunctioning. Typical, muttered Defense Secretary Paul Grant. They've been treating us like children since day one. Nancy pulled up another image showing detailed scans of the Vashar fleet. These aren't just raiders. This is a full invasion force, targeting the Proxima Centauri colony. The hegemony has only a small defense fleet there. How many lives are at risk? Asked Ellis. Nearly 30,000 hegemony citizens, including members of 8 different species, Nancy said. The colony isn't heavily defended. The hegemony never expected anyone to challenge them directly. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what was at stake. Even though the hegemony had been condescending, those were innocent lives in danger. We could deploy the Third Fleet, suggested Nancy. The UES Defiance and her battle group are ready for action. Captain Rogers and his crew are our best. Ellis stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the gleaming towers of New Geneva. The Hegemony Council specifically ordered us not to develop military ships. They said they would handle our protection. With all due respect, Mr. President, Nancy replied, we never stopped building our fleet. We just made it less obvious. And right now, those people need help, whether the council wants to admit it or not. Ellis turned back to face the room. If we reveal our true capabilities, there will be diplomatic consequences. If we do nothing, people die, Nancy countered. The president nodded slowly. Deploy the fleet, Admiral. But use the stealth systems. Get there, assess the situation, and only engage if absolutely necessary. Nancy saluted sharply. Yes, sir. Captain Alan Rogers stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance. The ship hummed quietly around him, its advanced engines barely making a sound. Through the view screen, he could see the stars streaking by as they traveled at speeds the hegemony thought impossible for primitive humans. Stealth systems functioning at 100%, Captain, reported Lieutenant Olivia Garcia from her station. The hegemony sensors can't detect us. Good, Alan replied. What's our ETA to Proxima Centauri? 4 hours, sir, said Commander Jeff Ramirez, his first officer. The Vashar fleet will arrive in 6. Alan studied the tactical display. The Defiance was small by hegemony standards, only about a quarter the size of their smallest warships. But it was fast, agile, and packed with technology the humans had developed while being underestimated. The hegemony defense fleet is in position, but they're outnumbered 4-1, Olivia reported. They have no idea what's coming. Alan frowned. Send a final warning to the hegemony command. Use a bounced signal so they can't trace it back to us. They'll just ignore it again, Jeff said. Probably, Alan agreed. But at least we tried diplomacy first. The message was sent, and as expected, no response came. The hegemony still didn't believe the threat was real. They wouldn't until it was too late. All hands, battle stations. Alan ordered. Prepare all systems but maintain stealth. We'll observe first. The crew moved with efficient precision. Unlike the lumbering hegemony ships with crews of thousands, the Defiance operated with just 200 people, each one highly trained, each one knowing their job perfectly. Ready rescue teams and medical, Alan added. I have a feeling we're going to need them. As the ship accelerated toward danger, Alan thought about the dismissive way the hegemony had laughed at humans. Soon they would learn that size wasn't everything. Sometimes the smallest opponent could be the most dangerous. The sky above Proxima Centauri colony filled with massive Vashar warships. Their dark hulls blocked the sunlight, casting long shadows over the settlement below. People ran through the streets in panic as the first bombs fell. From his hidden position near one of Proxima's moons, Captain Alan Rogers watched the attack unfold. The UES Defiance and its 5 sister ships remained cloaked, invisible to both Vashar and hegemony sensors. Hegemony Defense Fleet is engaging, reported Lieutenant Garcia. 4 ships against 16 Vashar vessels. On the tactical display, Alan could see the hegemony ships firing their heavy weapons. The massive energy beams struck Vashar shields with impressive force. But the hegemony tactics were simple and predictable. Line up and fire straight ahead with their biggest guns. They're fighting like it's an old naval battle, Alan muttered. No coordination, no strategy. The Vashar fleet split into smaller groups, surrounding the hegemony defenders. Their tactics were better but still relied mainly on their size and firepower. Within minutes, 2 hegemony ships were badly damaged. Colony defenses are failing, Jeff reported. Ground troops are landing. Civilian casualties already in the hundreds. Alan took a deep breath. We've seen enough. Battle Plan Omega. All ships to cloak on my mark. The bridge crew tensed with anticipation. They had trained for years for this moment. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Across the battlefield, 6 human vessels suddenly appeared. To the massive aliens, they looked like toys, each one barely the size of a Vashar shuttle. For a moment, nothing happened as both enemy forces seemed confused by the new arrivals. All ships, attack pattern Delta, Alan ordered. Target their engines and weapons. Keep moving. Don't give them a stationary target. The human vessels shot forward with shocking speed. Unlike the lumbering movements of the alien ships, the Earth vessels darted and spun with incredible agility. They moved in perfect coordination, like a school of fish. The Vashar ships turned their weapons toward this new threat, but their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the small, fast-moving targets. Massive energy beams fired into empty space as the human ships twisted away. Fire precision strikes, Alan commanded. The Defiance launched a volley of missiles, not at the Vashar ships' main hulls, but at specific weak points in their design. Weapon ports, sensor arrays, engine exhausts. Each missile hit with surgical precision. Keep them confused, Alan said. Beta Team, draw fire from those troop carriers. Gamma Team, protect the remaining hegemony ships. On the colony surface, the Vashar ground troops paused in confusion as their commander's signals became garbled. The massive soldiers looked up to see their proud fleet in disarray. General Throg, commander of the Hegemony Defense Force, stared at his view screen in shock. His own vessel was crippled, weapons offline, when a human ship flew past, drawing enemy fire away from him. "What are those things?" he demanded. "Human vessels, sir," his aide replied. They're winning." Within 30 minutes, the battle had completely reversed. 3 Vashar ships were disabled, their systems offline. The others struggled against an enemy they couldn't effectively target. The human vessels moved too quickly, attacked too precisely, and coordinated too perfectly. A message came through on the Hegemony Emergency Channel. "This is Captain Alan Rogers of the UES Defiance. Vashar forces, withdraw immediately or face complete neutralization. Your ground forces are already cut off from support." The remaining Vashar ships began to retreat, pulling back from the colony. Their ground troops, stranded and confused, surrendered to the colony defense forces. As the battle ended, the UES Defiance approached the crippled Hegemony command ship. General Throg watched with a mixture of relief and humiliation as the tiny human vessel, not even a quarter the size of his own ship, came alongside. "We didn't need your help," Throg said when communication was established. "We had the situation under control." Alan simply nodded. "Of course, General. We were just passing by." Behind him, his crew struggled not to smile. The mighty Hegemony had been saved by the tiny army they had laughed at. And this was just the beginning. The news of the battle at Proxima Centauri spread quickly through the galaxy. On the Vashar homeworld, Supreme Commander Vex slammed his massive fist into the war table, cracking its stone surface. "Impossible," he roared. "How could our mighty fleet be defeated by insects?" The military council chamber fell silent. No one wanted to be the target of Vex's rage. Finally, one officer stepped forward, a female Vasher named Krull. "The humans use tactics we've never seen before," she said. "Their ships moved too quickly for our targeting systems." Vex narrowed his yellow eyes. "I don't care about excuses. The humans have insulted the glory of the Dominion. They will pay." He turned to his strategic advisor. "Redirect our war efforts. The Hegemony can wait. Earth is now our primary target." Across the galaxy in the Hegemony Council chambers, a very different conversation was taking place. Counselor Zola, the blue-skinned four-armed diplomat who had once laughed at Ambassador Mitchell, now spoke in his defense. "The humans saved Proxima Colony," she said. "Without them, thousands would have died." General Throg, still wounded in his pride, snorted. "They got lucky. Their small ships are difficult targets, but they lack real power. Yet they disabled 3 Vasher dreadnoughts without destroying them," Zola countered. "A remarkable achievement even our fleets couldn't manage." The head counselor, Drox, raised his 6-fingered hand for silence. "The fact remains that Earth developed military technology despite our direct orders not to do so. They violated the terms of their protected status." Ambassador Gary Mitchell stood on the small platform in the center of the chamber, just as he had 3 years earlier. But this time, the Council wasn't laughing. "Earth never agreed to halt our military development," Gary said calmly. "We accepted your offered protection, but we never surrendered our right to self-defense." "Semantics," huffed Drox. "Reality," Gary corrected. "And now the Vasher know about us. Our intelligence suggests they're redirecting their war efforts toward Earth. We're prepared to defend ourselves, but we would prefer to work together." A soft murmur ran through the council. The idea of working alongside humans as equals clearly made some uncomfortable. Zola spoke up again. "I propose we form a joint military task force. The humans have proven their worth in battle. We should learn from each other." Back on Earth, Lieutenant Olivia Garcia ran through the training course for the 5th time. Her exosuit whirred softly as it amplified her movements. Around her, 20 Special Forces soldiers practiced similar maneuvers. "Faster," called Commander Frank Lewis from the observation deck. "Remember to them your small targets. Use that advantage." Olivia jumped 15 feet into the air, her suit enhancing her natural strength. She landed on a platform designed to simulate a Vasher soldier's shoulder, then placed a training marker on what would be a nerve cluster on a real opponent. "The Vasher have 5 major weak points," Frank reminded the team. "Eyes, throat, underarm junction, knee joint, and auditory canal. You're too small to challenge them head-on, so target these areas." In another section of the training facility, Admiral Caldwell met with her engineering team. Holograms showed modified Hegemony ship designs with new, smaller corridors and chambers. "The joint fleet will need modifications," Nancy explained. "Hegemony ships have no internal defense against boarding parties because no species was small enough to use their maintenance tunnels. Until now." Chief Engineer Peter Donovan nodded. "We've designed what we're calling immune system pathways, small corridors only humans can navigate. In case of boarding, our troops can move through the ship unseen. Nancy smiled. Good. The Vashar think our size is a weakness. Let's show them how wrong they are. In orbit, the UES Defiance underwent repairs while Captain Rogers reviewed battle footage. Each engagement with the Vashar taught them something new. He made notes about their firing patterns, their command structure, their weaknesses. The coming war would not be easy. The Vashar were powerful and angry, but they had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and throughout human history, that had always been a deadly error. The ice storms of Europa howled outside the human colony dome. Inside, civilians rushed to underground shelters as alarms blared throughout the settlement. Lieutenant Olivia Garcia watched from the command center as dozens of Vashar dropships entered the moon's thin atmosphere. "They brought more troops than we expected," said Sergeant Kevin Bailey, her second in command. "At least 5,000 soldiers." Olivia nodded, her face calm despite the odds. "Exactly as we planned. Operation Mosquito is a go." Across the command center, 50 Special Forces soldiers checked their exosuits one last time. The suits were marvels of human engineering, lightweight, flexible, but capable of enhancing strength and speed. Each soldier carried specialized weapons designed for fighting much larger opponents. "Remember your training," Olivia told her team. "We are not fighting them on their terms. We fight on ours." Outside, the massive Vashar troops landed and formed up. Each soldier stood 14 feet tall, covered in natural armor and carrying weapons larger than a human. Their commander, Battle Lord Krex, surveyed the human colony with contempt. "These tiny dwellings will be crushed under our feet," he told his officers. The so-called victory at Proxima was luck. Today we show these insects their true place. The Vashar forces advanced toward the colony dome with confidence. Their heavy footsteps shook the icy ground. But as they approached, they found the main entrance sealed and no humans in sight. "Where are they hiding?" Krex growled. Scanned for life signs. His troops spread out, searching the area. Suddenly, a small hatch opened in the ice near the edge of the colony. Before the nearest Vashar soldier could react, 3 human figures darted out and fired precision weapons at the joints in his armor. The massive alien fell, temporarily paralyzed. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Small hatches and tunnels, too tiny for the Vashar to enter, opened in the ice. Human soldiers emerged, struck with precision, and disappeared again before the Vashar could target them. "What is happening?" Krex roared as more of his soldiers fell. "Find them. Crush them." But the humans were impossible to pin down. The ice tunnels of Europa, originally built for mining and research, had been turned into a complex maze that only human-sized beings could navigate. Lieutenant Garcia and her team moved through these passages with practiced ease, emerging to attack and then vanishing before the Vashar could respond. One Vashar soldier fired his cannon at a glimpse of movement, only to hit another Vashar in the confusion. Krex ordered his troops to form a defensive circle, but this only made them better targets for the human snipers hidden in the ice ridges above. "They are everywhere and nowhere," shouted a Vashar officer as 3 more soldiers fell to precisely targeted shots. Inside the ice tunnel network, Olivia directed her teams via secure comms. Team 3, Southeast Quadrant. Team 5, circle around to their supply ships. The battle continued for hours, but it was completely one-sided. The Vashar, with all their size and strength, could not fight an enemy they could barely see and never catch. Their massive weapons were useless in the tight spaces between ice formations, and their heavy armor slowed them down on the slippery surface. By nightfall, Battle Lord Krex faced a humiliating truth. Half his force was disabled, and they had yet to kill a single human soldier. His command ship sent an urgent message: "Retreat immediately." As the Vashar limped back to their ships, Olivia watched from a hidden observation post. "Should we pursue?" Kevin asked. She shook her head. "No need. Let them go and tell the others what happened here." Let them explain how the tiny army defeated the mighty Vasher without losing a single soldier. When the last Vasher ship left Europa's orbit, cheers erupted throughout the human colony. News of the victory spread quickly across human settlements and then to hegemony worlds. Video footage of the battle, showing massive Vashar warriors helpless against the smaller, faster humans, went viral across galactic communications networks. On the hegemony capital world, General Throg watched the footage in stunned silence. Finally, he turned to his aide. "Contact Earth's military command," he said. Tell them I wish to learn more about their tactics." 1 month after the victory at Europa, the massive hegemony flagship Indomitable Crest floated beside the much smaller UES Defiance. Inside the hegemony vessel's largest conference room, both human and alien military leaders gathered around a table specially modified to accommodate both sizes. Admiral Nancy Caldwell no longer needed to stand on a platform. Instead, the hegemony had provided chairs that raised the humans to eye level with their much taller allies. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes about the changing relationship. "The Vashar are regrouping," General Throg said, pointing to a holographic map of the galaxy. "Our intelligence suggests they are planning a major offensive against both Earth and hegemony core worlds." "They're adapting to our tactics," Nancy added. "The element of surprise is gone. They now know what humans are capable of." Counselor Zola, who had become the strongest advocate for the Human Hegemony Alliance, nodded her large blue head. "Which is why we must continue to evolve our strategies, together." The meeting room fell silent as Commander Frank Lewis stepped forward. The human tactical expert had spent weeks studying both military traditions. "With respect," Frank said, "both our species have strengths the other lacks. The hegemony has raw power, heavy weapons, and nearly impenetrable armor. Humans have speed, precision, and the ability to infiltrate small spaces. We need to combine these advantages." He activated a hologram showing a new ship design, a hegemony dreadnought modified with smaller corridors running through it like blood vessels. "We call this the symbiosis approach," Frank explained. "Hegemony ships with human crews operating inside them as internal defense and special operations teams." General Throg, once the most dismissive of human capabilities, now leaned forward with interest. "Like having warriors inside our armor," he said. "Fascinating." In another section of the ship, Lieutenant Olivia Garcia led joint training exercises. Massive hegemony soldiers watched with newfound respect as human special forces demonstrated their fighting techniques. "You move so quickly," said Croft, a 12-foot-tall hegemony warrior. "I can barely track your movements." Olivia smiled. "And you have strength we could never match. But together," she gestured to the training area where human soldiers were practicing climbing onto the shoulders of hegemony troops, creating combined fighting units that could tackle any terrain. "Together we are unstoppable," Croft finished, a new understanding in his eyes. On the bridge of the UES Defiance, Captain Alan Rogers met with shipbuilders from both species. The engineers had been working day and night to retrofit the combined fleet. "The modifications to the hegemony vessels are nearly complete," said Chief Engineer Peter Donovan. "And we've added docking ports to our ships so they can attach to the larger vessels when needed." Alan nodded. "And the new weapon systems." A hegemony engineer, Trull, stepped forward. "We've reduced the size of our energy cannons so human crew can operate them. They're less powerful individually but can be fired with much greater accuracy." "Perfect," Alan said. "The Vashar expect us to fight as separate forces. They won't be prepared for true integration." As the meeting ended, Alan looked out the viewport at the combined fleet taking shape. Dozens of massive hegemony ships now featured smaller human vessels attached to them, like remora fish on sharks. Teams of mixed species moved between vessels, learning to work together despite their size differences. General Throg approached Alan, towering over the human captain. "I owe you an apology, Captain Rogers," he said, his voice rumbling. "I thought your size made you weak. I was wrong. Alan offered his hand, a gesture the hegemony had learned meant friendship to humans. Size isn't everything, General. Sometimes the smallest tool is exactly what you need for the job. Frog carefully took the tiny human hand in his massive one. The Vasher believe they fight two separate enemies. They don't understand what we've become. No, Alan agreed. They don't, but they will. Across the fleet, final preparations were underway. The Joint Strike Force would depart the next day for Vasher space. For the first time in history, the massive hegemony warriors and the tiny human soldiers would fight not as separate armies, but as one unified force. And the Vasher would never see it coming. The combined Earth hegemony fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vasher home system. 60 massive hegemony warships, each carrying dozens of human vessels and hundreds of human soldiers, moved into formation. On the bridge of the flagship Indomitable Crest, Captain Alan Rogers stood beside General Throg, watching as the Vasher defense fleet scrambled to respond. They didn't expect us to bring the fight to their doorstep, Alan said, studying the tactical display. They're still forming up. Throg nodded his massive head. The Vasher Emperor never imagined we would dare attack his homeworld. Pride, Alan replied. It's their weakness. Across the fleet, final preparations were underway. Lieutenant Olivia Garcia checked her team's equipment one last time. Her Special Forces unit had been assigned the most critical mission, infiltrating the Vasher Command Center while the fleet engaged their defenses. Remember the plan, she told her soldiers. We go in small, fast, and silent. The Vasher still think in terms of frontal assault. They won't be watching the maintenance tunnels or ventilation systems. On the tactical channel, Admiral Nancy Caldwell's voice came through clearly. All ships, execute Battle Plan Alpha. Human vessels, deploy on my mark. The Vasher fleet approached in a standard formation, their largest ships in front, smaller vessels behind. They had prepared for traditional hegemony tactics, expecting a head-to-head confrontation between massive warships. They think they're fighting the same enemy they've always fought, Throg said with a rare smile. Show them how wrong they are, Captain. Alan gave the order. All human ships, launch now. From the sides of the hegemony vessels, hundreds of small human ships detached and shot forward at incredible speed. They moved in complex patterns that the Vasher targeting systems couldn't track. While the Vasher concentrated on the human ships, the hegemony vessels advanced steadily, their weapons charged. The battle in space was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Massive hegemony ships provided heavy firepower, while nimble human vessels darted between enemy ships, targeting engines and weapons with precision strikes. When Vasher boarding parties attempted to capture a hegemony vessel, they found themselves ambushed by human soldiers emerging from hidden passages within the ship. While the battle raged, Lieutenant Garcia's team approached the Vasher homeworld in a stealth shuttle. They landed undetected near the massive Imperial Palace that served as the military command center. No guards in the maintenance areas, Kevin reported after scanning the building. They never thought anyone could fit through those passages. Olivia smiled. Their mistake. Let's move. The human team entered through a waste disposal duct, a tight squeeze even for them. They moved silently through the building's inner workings, paths the giant Vasher had never bothered to secure because no species they knew could fit through them. In his throne room, Vasher Emperor Vex received increasingly desperate reports from his fleet. On his tactical display, he watched as his proud navy fell to the strange combined tactics of the human hegemony force. How is this possible? He demanded. They are tiny creatures. They should be crushed under our might. His military advisor had no answer. The Vasher had prepared for the wrong war, expecting the traditional tactics the galaxy had used for thousands of years. Suddenly, the throne room doors locked. The communication system went dead. Vex stood from his throne, confused and angry. What is happening? A small voice came from behind him. Your empire is falling, Emperor Vex. The massive ruler turned to find Lieutenant Olivia Garcia and her team standing behind his throne. They had entered through a ventilation shaft so small he hadn't even noticed it existed. Each human soldier aimed precision weapons at the vital points of the Vashar guards. "Impossible," Vex whispered, truly understanding for the first time what his empire was facing. "You made a critical mistake," Olivia said calmly. "You thought our size made us weak. You'd never considered it might make us dangerous in ways you couldn't imagine." Outside the palace, human and hegemony troops landed together. The Vashar forces, receiving no orders from their command center, fell into disarray. By nightfall, the war was over. Emperor Vex formally surrendered to the combined forces, signing the document under the watchful eyes of both tiny humans and massive hegemony officials. 1 year later, the Galactic Hegemony Military Academy opened its doors to its first class of human cadets. At the graduation ceremony, General Olivia Garcia, newly promoted, addressed the mixed species crowd. "Size is never the true measure of strength," she told them. "Together, we are stronger than we ever were apart." The once mighty Vashar, now humbled, nodded in agreement. They would never again laugh at a tiny army, not when it had human soldiers.